I want to feel passionate about what I'm doing. I don't mind putting the work and the time in and the effort in if I feel like I'm making a difference.
Today's guest is wild woman Dawn Wilson. She's a full-time wildlife photographer and writer based in Estes Park, Colorado, known for her work in the rugged landscapes of the Rocky Mountains and Alaska. Dawn specializes in photographing animals in some of the most remote, high-altitude, and cold environments in North America, combining powerful imagery with storytelling that brings attention to wildlife conservation. Her work has been featured in hundreds of publications, including Outdoor Photographer and National Geographic Digital, and she's the author of 100 Things to Do in Estes Park Before You Die. She's also deeply involved in the photography community, having served as president of the North American Nature Photography Association, or NANPA, and continues to guide, teach, and inspire through her workshops and writing. Check out more about Dawn's photo tours, writing, and photography at Dawn, D-A-W-N, Wilson, W-I-L-S-O-N, photography.com. Now on to the episode with wild woman Dawn Wilson. Let's go. Hi, Dawn Wilson.
Hello, Bree. How are you? Long time no see.
I know. You know what? I never met you before, and now all of a sudden we've seen each other twice in a few months, which is awesome.
We have probably crossed paths before and not realized it.
I think so. Well, I don't know.
Maybe not.
Maybe. Well, I'm just learning more about you. I didn't know you were the president of NAMPA. So how many years were you president? What years?
On the board for 4 years. I was president for 2 of those.
Okay. During COVID.
During COVID.
That's exciting.
Yeah. The way that the previous president, when he called me and said, would you be interested in doing this? I'm like, well, I don't know. It's a lot of work and, blah, blah, blah. And that was one thing about COVID, was that a lot of things stopped. So I actually had the time to probably dedicate more than I would have if I had been really busy. Mm-hmm. So that was one benefit of it. But the downside of it was one of the things that he told me. He's like, oh, it's a great networking opportunity because as president, you get to do all these different things and you have to go to these different events. Well, all the events stopped. So all my networking went out the window. So
all the networking left and all the work stayed.
Right.
But hey, it paid off because you just won an award.
I did.
You do have an award. Yeah.
Yeah, I was not expecting that. I didn't know I was getting that here.
I mean, I didn't know you were getting it either. It was really cool to see this morning. So do you remember, what's the title of the award?
It's the President's Award. So every president, and I was able to give an award out to somebody too. Every president gets, at the end of their presidency, can select one person that they get to give a President's Award to, somebody that they feel has dedicated a lot of time and given a lot of effort to improving NAMPA, supporting NAMPA, kind of, supporting the initiatives that we have.
I think it's amazing. It's pretty too.
It is pretty. Yeah.
It's pretty. Now you can put it on your shelf and be like, I'm an award winner.
Pretty and bright red. Yeah. I like it.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. By the way, for those who don't know, we're talking, NANPA stands for the North American Nature Photographers Association. I'll put a link to the organization in the show notes so you guys can check them out if you want to. We are here at the NANPA Summit. So this has been really fun.
Is this your first one?
This is my first one.
They are a lot of fun. They're a lot of fun because you get to see people that you may not see otherwise. So you get to reconnect, or they're people that you email a lot. That was kind of why I was running a little bit late for this, because I was like, no, I've got to talk to this one person. I don't know when I'll see her again. And let me talk to this person that I just met. And so it does give you a really good opportunity to really start to connect. I've heard a lot of people talk about this year that it just feels very energetic. We have a very diverse, from a generational standpoint, we have a very diverse attendee list this year. We brought a lot of the people that were here at the beginning of NAMPA. So we are celebrating, let me see, this is the 31st year, I believe. So the people that were here at the beginning of Nampa's history, as well as people that are here in college. So we have a college program, and they're working on their project for the week. So it's a neat group of people, and I love hearing, like yesterday, Morgan Heim talked about how she was in the college program. I know somebody else that's on the board now, Amanda. She started in the college program. There's several people, and now they're actually involved in the organization and leading the organization. So it's fun to watch that over time.
Yeah, I think it's cool when you have people from like all different places and you're helping support some of the younger crowd, or I don't know, less experienced, helping them grow in what they're passionate about. And so I think that's what's been great to see. Like, this is my first like in-person, like real face-to-face time with people at Nampa. So it's been great to see how supportive they are to the community. So yeah, for me, it's personally been really cool. So.
I know I've heard a couple people say, "Oh, I met her." So you're doing the networking.
I'm getting around. I'm getting around. Well, it helps if you come and you do a breakout session and then people see you, or so yeah, which has been fun for me. So I don't know if this comes out. This will probably come out after, but that I did the breakout session with. We did the women in photography panel. So I think that is probably coming out before this conversation. So hopefully anyway. But yeah, that's been really fun to just be more visible. So, well, it was really fun to meet you in February in Estes Park. I know that's your stomping grounds is Colorado, but I'll edit this out, but I'll get a bio from you and I'll read it ahead of time so people know, and you don't have to introduce yourself. But what I'm personally curious about is more about who you are and your experiences in photography. Like, I know you do a lot of writing. I think you're very involved in the nature photography community. And obviously that you were Nampa president for a couple of years. But I want to hear some of your experiences in photography. I actually asked you the other day if you've been did I ask you if you've been chased by a moose? And you said, yeah, I think I have. So
I haven't really been chased by a moose. I would say I've been bluff charged by a young bull moose once. The elk, because of where I live, the elk are a little bit more of the chasers and the chasee stories. So
really,
it's just the nature of living in Estes Park. It's, if you're walking your dog or you're trying to get somewhere, you can't get out your front door because there's elk feeding on whatever's out in the yard, or so there's all kinds of stories about that.
Okay, well, share. What would you like? Usually I have a form that people fill out and we're just sitting here talking. So what is it that you are, you were telling me, I talked to so-and-so and they reminded me of something. So what is it that you want to share with me or with people? Let's go. Let's hear it. I want to hear about it.
And that is, it's funny. That is probably one of the most common questions I do get is, have you ever been chased by an animal? And it's...
and I asked it. Okay.
No, it's fine because it makes good stories, right? Thankfully I've knock on wood, I have not been in dangerous situations out in the field. I have certainly been around dangerous animals. I do consider elk to be, I wouldn't say they're dangerous, but I think they can be a little bit more goofy and unpredictable than even moose. Just earlier this year, about a month ago, I was walking my dog around one of the golf courses in Estes Park, and there was what I believe to be probably about a maybe just shy of two-year-old elk, so kind of still young, but just coming into maturity, and just wouldn't let us pass. Just would not let us go down the sidewalk. And so I finally got around it, and I went farther down the sidewalk, and then there were two spikes, which are ones that are just turning, just a year old. You could just see the new antlers starting to grow, and they were playing in the river and crossing the sidewalk, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is life in Estes. You just have to kind of keep your wits about you and kind of watch for those different things. And if you have to wait, sometimes you just have to wait for them to move until they're done doing whatever they do. And so that was the most recent one. A few years ago, gosh, it's been probably 4 years ago now. There was a cow that had a baby calf born right outside of our door. Yeah, and so we had it where our condo was in the parking lot. She had given birth just on the other side of the fence that separated the condo development from the apartment complex next door. And I mean, amazing to see that in the morning and get, this little calf with little wobbly legs, and it was all wet. It was kind of like a mix of snow and rain that morning. And so that was really cool to see that. And then a couple of days later, another cow had a calf. The first one is an older one. She's collared, so we've seen her around town quite a bit. So I know she's a little bit older. So she's used to being around people. And then the second one didn't have a collar, and so I don't know much about that one. And yeah, no, she wasn't letting people walk dogs. She was chasing them off. And unfortunately, eventually somebody called the police about her, and they took the calf, it's upsetting. It's like, to me, it's, if I'm going to live in a place like Estes Park, I have to protect myself. And yes, to some people, protecting themselves means, calling that in, but I don't ever want to see a calf lose its life because I made a dumb mistake. So that was kind of upsetting the cow for a couple of days was crying and looking for a baby. So it was very heartbreaking. But yeah, I mean, there's plenty of stories I know that, when I first started going up to Estes Park a lot before I lived up there, I was photographing a bull elk during the rut, and I had leaned down, and I now know not to do this. This is probably 12, 15 years ago. I had leaned down to pick up, I was photographing with a 500 millimeter, and he was walking towards me. So it was great photos. And all of a sudden I realized he was like filling the frame, and I couldn't fit the antlers in anymore. So then I go vertical to fit more of the antlers, and then I couldn't fit the antlers anymore. So all of a sudden I look up above my camera, and I'm like, oh, he's getting a little bit close. I need to pick up my stuff. And I had leaned down to pick up my bags. And bull elk, when they're in the middle of rut, that's one of the signs that they will do to each other. They'll lower their heads to show off the size of their antlers. And now, obviously, I don't have antlers, but I still lowered my head. And that, as I was picking up my bag, somebody behind me was like, "Hey, lady!" And I look, and he's like kind of not like at full speed, but he had picked up his pace quite a bit. And so, thankfully, there was a fence. I was on the other side of a fence and moved out of the way. But yeah, there's been all kinds of. The elk are interesting, but they are definitely not something to mess with in town. And of course, we've seen the other side of the story of people. One of the places where I worked, we had an office right at one of the golf courses. And when I was leaving work one day, it was in the rut season again, and we had one of the big bulls right outside the door, and he was sleeping on the golf course. And this guy comes up to me. He's like, "Can you go get him up for me?" I'm like, "No, and please don't you do it either." And he's like, "Well, just go hit him on the bum. My wife has never seen a bull elk before." And I'm like, "He'll get up eventually. You'll just have to wait." And I'm like, "Just please don't go over and touch him." And so we see that kind of stuff. People that ask, "What are they doing in town?" It's like, well, they were actually here a lot longer than we were. That's so. Right. I love living around. I've been up there almost 10 years now, and lived up there 10 years. I've been visiting a lot longer than that, and it still amazes me that I can sit someplace and just watch elk just walk by the window and not be able to pull out of a parking lot because there's elk doing whatever they're doing. And so it's a really neat place to live. And beyond the elk, we have so much wildlife up there.
I can tell that you're I can tell that you understand the wildlife because you've observed for so long. You care to find out about, their behaviors, their patterns, so that you know not to disturb them, and also, so you can really appreciate. And I think that's one thing that's really helpful in photography is really understanding your subject. And if I don't understand it, I want to go with someone who does so that I can learn from them and appreciate them, appreciate it even more through their eyes. And so this is one reason I love talking with people is because they get to see how your eyes light up and sparkle when, when you talk about the thing that you're really interested in. So, so you're doing tours, yeah? Do you do tours and workshops?
I do.
Tell us more.
I do quite a bit of tours. So I do tours in Rocky Mountain National Park. So those are private tours, private custom tours. So if people want to, I can do anything from, if somebody wants to go hike, if we want to go catch a sunrise or a sunset, I do night photography tours as well as just kind of a general tour. So if somebody wants to just learn a little bit more about the park, a half day or a full day tour. Full day tours, we'll go over Trail Ridge Road once that road is open up, and then we go over to Grand Lake. Half day tours are nice for somebody if they want to get a little bit of sunrise, a little bit of wildlife, and kind of mix that up. So we customize it to whatever somebody's looking for. Whether they're looking to learn more about photography, I'm happy to take people out to do that. We can do landscapes. So, like I said, I always try to find out what their goals are for either visiting the park. One of my favorite types of tours are people that have just moved to Colorado and know that they want to visit Rocky more and they're just trying to learn about the park. So I get to just do like a data dump of my brain. So we talk about history, we talk about the ecology of the park, we talk about the wildlife that's there, we talk about geological history. I mean, there's a lot because of the glaciers and that have basically kind of scoured that landscape. So it's an interesting place. It's it's beautiful. A lot of people like to hike there. So I have several places that I like to take people if they want to go hiking. So I do that, and then I also do tours. So I guide for a company called Women in Wildlife Photography. I do tours for another company called Wildside Nature Tours, and then I also have, although I heard they're not regional events with NAMPA anymore. They are now NAMPA's Nature Photography Tours. So I have a tour coming up later this year with them for Fall Colors in the San Juan Mountains of Colorado.
Oh yeah, okay. So, I'm going to do that this year. I think I get to do that this year. I've never done Colorado fall photography, and I'm super excited about it.
So beautiful. I know I was talking, to a couple of people that that you're going to be, down in that area, and the end of September, early October. It's so pretty down there. So pretty. Last year we had some northern lights one night that was just spectacular to get fall colors, northern lights, and that's something you can't guarantee, unfortunately.
No, I know, right?
But that was pretty nice. And then I also I love the cold, so I do a lot of tours in Alaska. I do Lake Clark. I'm going to scout a trip, hopefully that I can start doing next year. We're going to drive up later this year, drive up the Dalton Highway. So kind of a remote trip, but go up the Dalton Highway during fall colors. So landscape and wildlife again.
Wait, and fall colors in Alaska is like end of August.
End of August.
So it's still burning hot in Texas, but it's fall up in Alaska.
Yes. So I do, go to take people to Churchill for polar bears. So I do that every year. I take people to Peru along the Amazon River. So we photograph mostly birds, but we also photograph a lot of monkeys and primates. We see the pink dolphins. We usually have some really cool frogs, amphibians, and snakes. We've had some boa constrictors and anacondas. The anacondas are always kind of cool to see. You hold them and they're just like, they're so muscular.
My frame of reference is that movie from the 90s.
And with J-Lo. And that's what most people think. Yeah, I think that was Jennifer Lopez.
But yeah, okay. That's a good reminder.
Go to Belize, so that's another tour that's photographing a lot of birds, a lot of primates. Let's see, where else do I go? Haines for bald eagles. Lake Clark for brown bears. Some night tours, so Devil's Tower for night photography. I like to photograph.
Is that Wyoming?
It's Wyoming, northeast Wyoming, kind of pretty close to the Black Hills area.
Yeah.
So you're not far from Badlands National Park and Wind Cave and Sturgis, all that. I love that area up there. I feel like it's kind of an undiscovered area, or some people know about it, but it's a neat area.
It's like underappreciated. Yeah, I've driven through there. I'm a photographer, but it's beautiful.
It is gorgeous up there. Both the fall. I've been up in Badlands National Park on Christmas Day, photographing with snow out in the Badlands. May and June are really pretty. With everything gets very green up there, very green and lush, and you get storms that come through. So.
The U.S. has some really amazing places. I know you talked about some international, but like I think the United States has some really amazing. We have some amazing landscapes and like interesting things to photograph here.
We
Like
have a lot of fascinating things.
Yeah.
totally. Like I can go from here and drive for partial day and be in a totally different landscape. It's so cool.
Everything from rainforests to deserts and mountains to beaches. Yeah, we are very lucky here that we have just these amazing view sheds that I hope stay protected and keep getting more protection. But yeah, it's when you look at what we have in Alaska, and it's just this untouched, pristine wilderness, and even to the cities. I mean, we have, it's part of the reason I love living in Colorado. I mean, Denver is a great hub. I don't live, I'm an hour and a half away from Denver, but it has the sports teams, it has all the conveniences of a major city, yet you can go an hour and a half west and be in remote wilderness. It's such a neat state for that. And of course, a lot of people have discovered that too. But
Right. And I think Utah's kind of like that too, in a way.
Washington, Utah, Montana, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you could only pick one place to photograph for the rest of your life, all transportation is cut off and you have to stay, where is it?
Oh, if I had to stay, could I just Alaska? A big state like Alaska. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'd still need transportation to get to some places.
Okay, but you're locked into the state. Let's just say you're locked into the state. Yeah.
I mean, I live in Colorado for a reason. We have a lot to photograph there. We have a lot to see. It's a close tie between Colorado and Alaska.
How did you come into photography?
I have always enjoyed being around animals. Growing up, I always thought I was going to be a veterinarian. That was always kind of my dream job. And I kind of started pursuing that, but then I also have this creative side, and I got involved in high school. I got involved in like a yearbook staff, and I got involved in some things along those lines. So I got into photography, and I always had a camera with me, but then I always wanted to be around animals too. And so I wound up going undergrad. The town that I grew up in had the best communications college in New Jersey, where I grew up. And so it kind of made sense. It was a little bit cheaper because I could live at home, and it was in-state tuition, and it was a very good school for communications. So I wound up doing that, and that was actually how I wound up in Colorado. About 3 or 4 years after I graduated college, I was like, I still want to pursue veterinary medicine. So I started traveling. I went to a few different schools, did some interviews, talked to students, talked to the admissions team. And CSU in Fort Collins, Colorado was one of the schools I had looked at, and I just fell in love with the area. Absolutely fell in love with being out there. So I wound up deciding that I was too far down one path to really kind of make that 90-degree turn in my career, especially for the fact that I was already making more than what I would have made coming out of veterinary school, which is an unfortunate thing, because it's an expensive program, and they do important work. So I decided, I was like, I'll just stay on this path. I finished up my MBA. I have an MBA in marketing from Temple University in Philly, and as I finished in May of 2002, and by August of that year, I had the house on the market, and we moved out to Colorado. No jobs or anything, but we were like, nope, we're going to make this happen. And I just started kind of finding a way to combine those interests of science and writing and photography and animals, and I just found a way to kind of combine all of that together. So I've been doing photography a long time. I've enjoyed writing for a long time. Yeah. That was part of the reason why I went into study communications. So it's been a great way to really kind of pull all those pieces together. Unfortunately these days it's I won't say exactly. Well, I've probably hinted about how long ago that was, but it's a little bit harder these days. Especially AI makes me a little bit nervous about how that's going to change. I can go online and I get so frustrated with I get on Facebook and it's like, do you want us to write your post for you? I'm like, no, I've got a brain. I can write this myself. But those types of things are kind of changing how we produce content now.
Sure, yeah.
And so we, just like any job, you have a long career, and you have to find ways to kind of keep improving yourself. So I've been studying, social media, and I've been looking at getting a certification in digital media. That's such a big part of what we're doing, learning more video work. As much as I tend to just gravitate towards photography, I'm like, no, I really need to do more of this video work. So it's those types of things, learning different ways to communicate and finding those niches that you can say, you know what, this is how I differentiate myself from the other people that are out there.
In a way that feels good to you.
Yes. Yeah. And unfortunately, I'm one of those types of people. I've worked with people that they can come into a job and say, you know what, I've got kids to send through college, and I just come in, I collect my paycheck, and I go home. And I've never been that type of person. I want to feel passionate about what I'm doing and really enjoy. I don't mind putting the work and the time in and the effort in if I feel like I'm making a difference. So.
Yeah. So what is the thing you like to make a difference about? That's probably a terrible question, but you know what I'm asking.
I think the biggest thing is, I've heard multiple people mention that actually, even just at this conference, and every time I'm at Summit, you just get so inspired. You're like, yes, I've got this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Mm-hmm. But one consistent thing I keep hearing people say, and it's the same thing that I have to remind myself, is what is your goal? What's your purpose? And it really is to just raise awareness about, our world is getting more and more crowded every day. And how do we live with the natural world? How do we, I can't save everything. I don't photograph deserts. I don't really, I'm much more of a nature or a mountain person. But how do we raise awareness for people that, like my friends that, I grew up with in New Jersey, that have never been out to the Rocky Mountains, mm-hmm. or people that have never seen the rainforest of Peru, to share those experiences and get people to say, hey, I care. I want to save this. It's important. We need those things and those places and those animals that live there. There's a reason why all of that exists on this planet. It's all so interconnected, everything down to, I think one of the best stories I usually tell people is that when I left my last corporate job in 2013, it was what I would describe as my last official corporate job. I've had other jobs, full-time jobs, with employers since then, but it was my last, traditional office 9 to 5.
I bet you don't miss it.
No, not really, but I remember they were taking me out to lunch, one of the last days that I was working there, and they took me out to lunch as a going away lunch, and it was in Colorado, just a little bit north of Denver, and we passed this prairie dog town, and the guy that I worked for was from Chicago, and he was kind of newish to the area. He's like, oh, prairie dogs, they're terrible. They have plague, and they spread disease, and I'm like, you're from Chicago. Think of the projects that Chicago's known for, and think of the crime, and think of the violence that's there. It's the same concept. It's you put that many people that close together in small areas, and you reduce the quality of life, or you reduce the resources that they have, and now all of a sudden things get tense. And that's kind of what a prairie dog town is almost like. You've put all these animals into a small area, and of course disease is going to spread. They're closer together to each other, and so it kind of helped him visualize what a prairie dog town was. And then as we were coming back to the office, this bald eagle was flying overhead. And he's like, oh, look at this eagle. That's so cool. I don't think I've seen one out here yet. And I'm like, what do you think that eagle's hunting? He's like, prairie dogs. And I said, yeah. I was like, the prairie dogs are there for a reason. It's a whole ecosystem that works together. And all of a sudden it kind of clicked for him. And it's those types of stories that I think, and I love the fact that I write as well as I take photographs, so I can really tell a full story, and that's why I want to add more video into what I do. But it's telling those stories about why all these things are interconnected and how it impacts us too. The things that we do impact them, the things they do impact us. And I'd like to just get people to kind of see more of that.
Awesome.
Even just their own backyards. Yeah. It doesn't need to be the Amazon of Peru or Churchill where polar bears. It can be your own backyard.
Right. Yeah. And I think people should have permission to be interested in such a variety of things, like care about very specific things like we do, right? And so you were like deserts, whatever, but somebody else really does. So we need people from everywhere that care about all kinds of things to do that kind of stuff, to support in the ways that they can, either like you do with your photography and your writing, or someone who doesn't have those skills or desires but they have money. That helps a lot. So, or someone is maybe passionate and has a voice and likes to speak up about things, you know what I mean? So we need people from everywhere.
And kind of, I guess, I'm thinking about one project that I'm working on, and kind of to combine a lot of things that you're asking about. We talked about, what's your goal, what's your purpose. We talk about, what are you working towards? I have this one project, Colorado turns 150 next year. And I'm now kind of getting behind the 8 ball, but I've been thinking about it, working on it for a couple of years. And I had talked to a few people a few years ago that were kind of advising me on the project and developing it. And they said, and they said the same thing. What do you want out of this project? And of course I had the blanket statement, I want to save all of this. And they're like, you got to kind of narrow it down a little bit. And one of the things I keep coming back to is, as one of the things that I see in Colorado, as the population has increased, you see an increase in traffic, you see an increase in vehicle collisions, you see an increase in lack of space for animals to migrate to where they need to go. And we have big mammals. I mean, you hit an elk and you're gonna do some serious damage to your car. Moose, elk, deer, any of them, bears. I've seen what happens when somebody hits a black bear. And ultimately, I think that's kind of one of those things that I'm trying to keep myself focused on is to think about that. Think about how fast we're driving. Think about we are sharing this landscape with animals, whether it's a little bird flying across the road or it's a bigger elk. We've got to kind of slow down and remember that we are part of this landscape. It is not our landscape. We're part of it. And we have to learn to kind of integrate with that. And part of that is driving. So that's kind of one of the things that I'm going to keep focusing more on is raising awareness about, just wildlife's on the road. Keep an eye out. If it's dusk, if it's migration season, really kind of slow down a little bit and turn the lights off, put the cell phone down when you're driving so you can.
Right. Are there public publications where people can read your work?
I do a lot of work with Colorado Life and Colorado Outdoors, Wyoming Wildlife. Those are some regional publications. I'm going to start doing some work with, hopefully I'll do some work with Wild Eye. That was one of the things that I wanted to talk about when I was here.
Hear that, Wild Eye?
And so Wild Eye is a new magazine with some of the people that we're working with, Outdoor Photographer. And Outdoor Photographer has been purchased, so they may be coming back into the scene, which would be phenomenal.
I have high hopes for that.
So I'm kind of getting into the mix of that. So I have been an outdoor photographer before as well. And then of course I was just telling somebody recently that, I have my vision board and I have all the things that I still want to do. And there's some publications that I have put on a pedestal that I would really like to work with, and so I think that's kind of some of my goals in the next year or two. So
awesome. Well, I hope you get those. I love a good vision board.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple of like fun things on there, my dream vehicle and that kind of thing. But no, I've got a cover of Audubon magazine, and I have a cover of National Geographic, and I have a cover of. What else is on there? Smithsonian, and I've been in digital form in these magazines, but I'd like to really start doing some research. I have a couple of ideas for some articles that I think would be a lot of fun to pitch to them. So
okay, we're sending you the good energy so you can get that. Yeah, I think that's important to have the goals and to be able to really see them and how to make them big.
Yeah, you have to work towards those things. I mean, it's the bigger your distribution is, the more you can spread that message of, whether it's slowing down on the highway so you're not hitting things, or turning lights off during migration season. I do a lot of night photography, so I've been really fascinated by how animals behave at night. We see a lot of them. Most people understand, owls are busy at night, and certain desert animals tend to be busy at night, but elk are actually, moving around quite a bit at night. You were asking me about.
They are, because they go into my mom's apple orchard and they eat the apples, and she wakes up in the morning and fences are destroyed. So yes, elk do that.
Yeah, elk and deer and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were asking me about stories, kind of bring this full circle. When I give night presentations or presentations about my night photography and being outdoors at night, people are always like, they know I like to be around animals. They're like, have you ever seen animals at night? Do you ever have any scary stories? And I'm like, I don't have any scary stories at night, but but they're certainly out there. And I know there was a couple of years ago, I was photographing during the Perseids meteor shower. I had given a class earlier in the evening, and then I wanted to go up on Old Fall River Road, which is a dirt road in Rocky Mountain National Park, and I wanted to get up to the tundra and photograph. There was a spot that I had a vision of. I thought the Milky Way would kind of drop into this ridge line. And so I was out there and I was photographing it, and I was doing some long exposures I was going to do a time-lapse video of the stars. And all of a sudden I hear this, like, I turn around and there's this cow elk, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 feet away from it. And, and the elk in the summertime, this is August, elk in the summertime are never by themselves. So I'm like, especially the cows, maybe the bulls will be by themselves, but I'm like, all right, where are the rest of you? And I couldn't see the rest of them, but she was just checking, wanted to know what I was doing up there. I was the only person out there, so, but she kind of went off on her way, and I just, okay.
It is unnerving, though, like
To be in the dark.
and it's not a human sound.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I knew exactly what it was.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I absolutely knew what it was, and I've had the same thing happen with deer. I had a deer buck come up behind me when I was out photographing down near Crested Butte one night, and he started scraping his foot in the ground. And that sound, I didn't know what it was at first until I turned around. I've seen fox. I've had fox come up. I've had moose on another side of a lake. I was giving a night tour, and the guy was from Boston, kind of freaked out. I'm like, you do what you need to. He was good. He knew what he was doing with his camera. I was like, I'll keep an eye on what's going on around us. Right. Don't worry about it. That's what I'm out here for. I'm not only out here to teach you and get you to the spots, but I'm also part of it is to keep you safe. Yeah, I'm familiar with what's going on. So yeah, that was kind of interesting.
I was photographing in the Nevada desert, and I just one night by myself, totally alone. And it was super quiet, like almost weird quiet,
It's a desert stillness.
It's the desert stillness, yes. So I'm sitting there in my chair and I'm photographing this giant Joshua tree. I'm pretty sure I sleuthed it out so I could find the biggest one in Nevada. So that's just for fun, And so I'm sitting in my chair and I've got my camera and super still. And all of a sudden I feel right over my head. It was an owl. And I'm like, oh, like no noises, just a, and I'm like, okay, because I'm not really, I don't know wildlife patterns, but I was listening for things, and it was slightly unnerving. And then I'm like, oh, owls, they don't want me. They want something else. But do you know what I mean?
They're silent flyers. That's how they hunt.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So their feathers are designed so that they don't. You hear a duck. A duck or a Canada goose. You'll hear them. Yeah. You'll hear the wind going through their feathers. Their feathers aren't designed to be quiet. Owls, because they're predators, their feathers are designed to not pick up. I don't know the specifics of how the design is formed, but they don't pick up the sound of wind, or the wind doesn't make sound going through their feathers, so that they can basically stalk prey. They can sneak up on prey.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Nature's awesome.
I had we haven't gotten into it, but I had spent a year and a half on the road traveling in an RV, and when I started out, I was new to it. I had never had an RV, and I got my RV jackknife. I went to pick up my kayak. I had a kayak that I was traveling with, and I I was like, I'm just going to leave it here and I'll bring the RV. I was leaving the next morning. So I was all hooked up. I had the Jeep hooked up to the RV, and I went down to the boat launch to pick up the kayak, and I jackknifed myself coming back out, not realizing that I couldn't quite, it wasn't, anyway, it's a long story on how to do all that. But I found, because it was dark out, I tried to unhook the Jeep in the dark, and I was just like, I'm too new at this. I'm just going to wait till the morning. I'll get out of here before anybody's even out of, first thing in the morning. And what wound up happening was that a great horned owl, and I'm assuming it sounded like a chick. This was later in the year. It was in September. So, but it still sounded like they were feeding chicks, or young. They wouldn't be chicks at that point, but they landed on the roof of the RV, and it was just so cool. Just like you said, it's just like you're not out there by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not alone.
No, we share this landscape with a lot of different things, a lot of diversity.
Yeah, it's so cool. Yeah, I love it. I love every time I'm out. I just love like soaking in nature and learning more about anywhere that I'm at. That was super cool. Well, thanks, Dawn.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me.
Thanks for sharing. Thanks for doing this Women in the Wild recording.
Yes.
We didn't say, but like I'm in my hotel room in Tucson at the summit, and Dawn actually has the hotel room next door. So we're like neighbors, and so we're just recording this, and because we were trying to like figure out a time, and here we are. So yeah. So now we're done. But I hope we get to our paths cross again really soon.
I am sure they will.
Yeah.
Because we both will be down in Southern Colorado at the same time.
That's right, for sure. I'm going to link to all of Dawn's tours and all of the places that you can check her out, or you can do a private tour with her or whatever. So I'll link to all of that. So hopefully you go and spend some time with Dawn, because she's really lovely and she's very knowledgeable. So anyway, thanks for joining me. It was a good time.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Thanks so much for spending time with me today. You can find episode blog posts, featured women in photography, my personal creative work, and details about private photography mentoring over at wildwomanphotography.com. If you're enjoying the podcast, the best way to support is by following the show, leaving a review, or sharing an episode with a friend. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode.